Hey guys, my name is Dorian Avila. I'm a logo designer and illustrator, and this is going to be a mock-up logo design we're going to make today, a vintage design. So let's get right into it. So we have our image here ready, and again, this is just a mock-up. This is not for a customer. This is just a fun project just for the purpose of this video. And we're going to trace this image in a cross-hitch, scratchboard kind of style, vintage style. And let's get right into it. So make sure your image is on a separate layer from where you're going to be doing your vector. And what I use is the Blob Brush, Shift B. And we're just going to start out with the basic outline of the design. So I like starting out with the eyes first. It just gives, I'm gonna zoom in, just gives the character a lot of life. And again, we're just tracing, just having a liberty with the main outline of each piece of the design here. So in this case, we're just tracing the eyebrow, taking liberty with that, the eyeball. And this specific design has a lot of shadows. So we're just going to trace all these shadows here and all these major lines, these wrinkles on the illustration. And just basically all these wrinkles you see on the person's face, the eye, and just filling in all the shadows. Just taking liberty with this whole section here. A lot of shadows. Just all around. Just stopping where the hair meets that all that shadow. Right around the cheek. And I'm just gonna fill in all the outline. There's a faster way to fill in all the vector here with the pen tool, but I love using the Blob Brush because it just reminds me more of a traditional art. And honestly, it just, while it might not be faster, it's more fun for me. It just reminds me of old acrylics or markers. And we're just gonna fill all this in. Might not be practical, but it's fun. And the great thing about the Blob Brush is that you can go in and erase a lot of stuff. So with the eraser, with Shift E, you can just go back in there and just erase any pieces that you felt you messed up. And another great thing about the Blob Brush is that it really helps you with shapes. So for example, if I needed to do a nice curve around the nose here, and it comes out a little bit crooked, the Blob Brush, once you let go, it kind of fixes those edges for you, makes it into a nice smooth curve. And again, we're just going to outline all the hair, all the wrinkles. And a little bit more of the hair up here. got this image from on Splash.com. It's a really popular website for a lot of businesses because all the pictures are technically royalty free or commercial free. You can use them for lots of projects, and you don't have to give the artist any credit. They're just a platform for free photos. Okay. So we're just basically just selecting any major areas before we start doing any other details that would have that would stand out. All these wrinkles, the shadow right under the nose, all these shadows in the beard. So this mock-up logo is again something I made up, and it's probably going to be like a, I don't know, just a made-up business, like a locksmith. This picture, the old man reminded me of Odin, the Scandinavian god, and I was going to do like a blacksmith or a locksmith or something, and an emblem with text. We start out with our illustration here. I use a lot of the hand tool to move around the canvas. I use a digital pin and a pad, and the pin has 2 buttons on it, and I have it for the hand, as you can see here, for moving, and the other button I have it for the Blob Brush, which is really convenient. And I have my left hand on the keyboard, so I use Control or Command Z. I use a Mac for my mistakes. So I have all my keys in reach. Now for the Blob Brush, I just use the default settings. I don't really tweak them. But the great thing about using a pen and a pad is that you get to control the thickness of the Blob Brush with pressure. So I can start with a thin line here and then put more pressure and it just gets thicker. You can use this with not use this, but you can make the same thing, even this illustration, with a mouse as well. It'll just take a little bit more practice, a little bit more of a headache, but I think it's important to be loyal to the tools you have available to you before you try and go and buy more tools and spend more money. So also with the brackets, you can make the Blob Brush, the pin, bigger or smaller. So when, like for example, in this area, I want to cover all this area, so I'm going ahead and making the brackets a little bit bigger, not the brackets, but the brush. And I apologize if I if I have a slight accent. English is my first language, so now and then I pronounce words a little bit different, so apologies. Okay, so we're gonna fill in all this out here, and we're gonna go ahead and cut out this whole section later with a shape. I'll teach you guys how to do that. But for now, we're just filling all this in. And again, there's faster ways to fill this in, but I really enjoy this process personally. Okay. And it doesn't have to be perfect, especially with this style. It's somewhat of a grungy kind of style, so there's supposed to be some mistakes here and there. Okay, I think that's kind of the majority of the outline, maybe the beard kind of there. Oh, it's a little too thick. Gotta go back to the brackets. There you go. Some other hair right there. Okay, and that's just basically the major outline. It doesn't look like much right now, but you gotta have a little faith in the process. It's kind of artists. It's sometimes kind of like it's kind of like baking. If you see just the ingredients on the table, the eggs, the milk, the flour, you're trying to make a cake. It's like, oh, this doesn't look like a cake. Well, you're not done with it. You gotta have a little faith in the process. So I'm gonna lock that layer, make a new layer here with create a new layer. Select that. And we're gonna start going right into some details here. Start with this hair up here. And we're just gonna make our version of hair here. Now what we're gonna do here is grab this line we just made, hold Option, move it up, drag it up, and then with Command D, it duplicates that pattern. I'm just gonna select that layer there, and then with Shift D, the eraser, just gonna go in and delete a little bit of that. And we're just gonna go in and out and do some of that hair. And go right into maybe the facial hair right here. Just close that in. I'm just gonna take some liberty in here and start making some of that hair. In and out. And again, the great thing about the Blob Brush is that you can make a lot of mistakes as far as curves, straight lines, and it really helps you with those lines. Right here, we're just gonna take a little liberty and make some hair right there. Try to have fun with it. Doesn't have to be perfect, but just kind of an indicator of where you think the hairs would be. This is the beard, and this man has a lot of facial hair. I believe the original picture was of a homeless man, but I thought he had such beautiful hair and a beautiful beard, just an interesting face, and I didn't really see a homeless man. I saw somebody like I saw Wisdom, and I just thought we're just gonna make this guy into Odin for this project. Okay, let's see here. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit to see where the beard or facial hair would be. Pick right there, and then we're just going to follow some of these indicators for facial hair. Just basically pick a spot up here, make it thin and then thick, and just pick a destination on the opposite side, and it'll give this illusion of the hair. Same thing here with the mustache. And just basically fill the pattern. The whole beard with basically these same type of lines. Now the instructions for this video, they're just specific to this specific design. You can apply these to a lot of other illustrations, but this isn't really a tutorial for maybe logo design in general, but this specific project, this specific illustration. And And we're gonna start working on the mustache a little bit here, just little lines, and then we're gonna take some liberty and make some, just to match this side, make some lines here to indicate, make an indicator that this is kind of a mustache. And we're just gonna go back to the beard over here and just, you know, really up to you. There you go. And just have fun with it. And honestly, a lot of, if you've been drawing, I'm not liking how that's coming out. If you've been drawing for a while, you probably notice that sometimes if you're not in a good mood, you draw the way you feel, which is always not always a good thing. So I encourage everybody to always stay positive when you're working on a project, even if it's personal. And because if you're in a sour mood, your art's gonna reflect that. It's also another good reason to stay positive, because you don't want your art looking a little messier than it should. Especially with its, you know, I guess with this art style you can get away with it because, again, it is a little chaotic on purpose. And at this point, I'm just kind of making up where the beard or the facial hair would go. As you can see in the picture, you don't really see much of where the hair goes. So we're just kind of making it up, twisting it in. In and out. And just be patient with it, with each stroke. If you don't like something, Command Z to get rid of it. There you go. Now we're gonna try to play with some of the hair up in here. I'm not liking this piece right here, so gonna touch that, delete that. Use backspace on my keyboard. I'm not sure what it is on PC, so it's really important also to make sure you're naming your layers. There's nothing worse in the world than having to go back and change something, especially if you're doing a project for a customer or for somebody else, and just in general, if you're not getting paid for it. Having to look for maybe just the eye or the eyebrow or just the beard. And if you're not naming your layers and putting different things on layers, it's going to be a nightmare looking for things. So I encourage everybody, if you're starting out doing this, you really should name all your layers. You're going to thank yourself later for that. And again, we're just doing some of that hair on his head. Gonna go in here to this part. There you go, and fix that a little bit. Okay. Now here comes the fun, difficult part, which is really to do all these lines on the person's face, on the character's face, this illustration. And we're going to name this layer face. You know, before we get into the face, we're actually going to go back to the previous layer, unlock it. I like to lock my layers. That way I'm not making changes on a layer I don't want to. But let's make some indicators here, some lines on the eyebrow. There you go. And I add a little curve. Makes it interesting, as opposed to just doing boring straight lines. Okay, we're gonna lock that layer. We're going to that other layer we made a minute ago, called it face. And we're going to make a line that begins at one side of the face and it ends at the other side of the face. So we're gonna start out really on this side. We're gonna start out real thin, like so. Thick, thin, and then really thick. There you go. And then we're gonna move this line all the way to the top here. Right where the head starts. We're going to hold Option. That separation right there. Command D, and it will repeat the pattern. It will repeat the last command you gave. So we hold the whole layer. It gives you this box right here. It basically selects the whole layer. We're just going to pull this, that way we don't have that gap right there. There you go. And we're going to select just that layer. Shift E for the eraser. And same thing with the Blob Brush. With the eraser, you can use the brackets to make the eraser bigger or smaller. And we're just going to erase those facial lines we don't want, like in the hair or outside of the illustration. And just basically going around the face, keeping these lines outside of the facial hair, just keeping it inside the skin of the face. These lines are going to indicate detail and shadow. I think we're good there. And we're going to close that layer with the original image. We're going to erase inside the eyebrow. It already has its own lines inside the eyeball. Okay. Now we're going to pick a light source. We're gonna make another layer and we're gonna name this sun or light, whatever. And this is gonna help us. I'm gonna draw a sun right here. And it helps doing something like that or keeping something like that in mind, because it'll indicate it. It'll tell you where your highlights will be on the face, and also where your shadows will be. I'm gonna lock that layer, and we're going to go to that layer with the lines on the face, and we're gonna erase. Gonna make that eraser a little bit bigger. We're gonna erase right outside of the face. And here, this is hair, I believe. And as you can see, it already adds a little dimension here. Another place where you would see some highlights would be the nose. Right here. There you go. You see that? And a little bit on the cheek. highlight. Maybe a little bit above the eyebrow. And again, that's one of the great things about keeping everything on a separate layer, because you can select just what you want. And that way, when you select that layer, you can erase just that portion. I'm gonna go in and fix a little bit on the shadow on this nose. I'm not happy with it. Kind of once we get to this point, we can really go back and start defining every little hairline and the shadows, making them a little bit better, more defined. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get an oval here we previously made. And okay, here comes a little fun part. We're going to make a layer where we're going to put all of our vectors for the face, and we're going to select that layer, the whole face, with sublayers, and we're going to select the oval, or a oval, or any shape, and we're going to hit Shift M, and what happens here is holding Option, you can delete everything outside of your shape. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in, go to the border, and just go around with patience on the entire shape, and just delete anything that's outside of that shape, that oval shape. That way we get a nice frame for our illustration. Some of these parts you might have to zoom in a little bit more. So with Command and minus and plus, you can also zoom into your canvas. Oh, messed that up. You're gonna find that Command C is Command Z is your best friend in this whole thing, in case you make a mistake. And just be patient with this part and just go around the whole design. Deleting anything you don't want outside of your shape. And I think we're good there. There we go. Okay, great. Now we're gonna lock our sun again. Make another layer with Create New Layer. Select that layer. What I want to go back in and do is fix some of these little, pick the right color. So under swatches here, this window, I believe you can find swatches under window up here. Here's where you can select your colors and drop them in here. So let's say I wanted, I don't know, some orange in there or something. Once I select it on this window, I can actually hold it and drop it into a folder and keep it forever. It helps me keep track of the color. So I have this predetermined color palette already. Anyways, we're going back in and fixing some of these little details. making them look a little bit more purposeful. These were some originally some of the wrinkles that mixed in with the cross hatching style thing I was trying for. Oh, something like that. That'll do. And just going through the whole design and clearing up all these little gaps like that. This little mess over here. If you take time to fix all these little mistakes, your illustration's just going to look a little bit cleaner. You can spend a lot of time on this. It's really up to you how much time you want to spend on this. But the more you do, the better your illustration's going to look. Connecting these lines here a little bit better to the facial hair. So, and this section, this part of the illustration is pretty fun. So usually I would have music in the background, but for the purpose of this video, I don't have any music playing, at least not live. I'll probably put some when I edit the video, but as far as live music, I don't have anything right now. Okay. We did a decent job with that part. Now we're going to go ahead and make another layer. I'm just going to lock all these other layers. Again, that way I'm not putting any other details I don't want in there. And what I'm going to do is, on these lines here, I'm going to make this side of the face, the lines, a little bit thicker. Probably start out with one of these lines and maybe just copy the pattern. So real thin. There you go. Maybe a little thicker than that. Yeah, maybe a little thicker. So real thin here. Again, with the Blob Brush, it's amazing that how much it helps you yeah, we're not moving that up there. How much it helps you with the curves. Just holding Option, we can move in the same, just basically make a copy of any piece of your illustration. And just basically overlaying it on every line here. And I'll zoom out and show you guys why I'm doing this in just a second here. Okay. So it basically makes the lines a little thicker on this side. And we're going to do something similar I'll lock this layer, something similar up here on the face as well. Okay. I'm going to start out thin. We're going to start out thin here. And then thick. There you go. And grab that. And just basically move it down. Just indicating that move that a little bit at an angle. Same thing here. Indicating that there's more shadow on this side of the face. I'm just moving it down, holding the option. I'm not really letting go of the option, I'm just holding it down. There's no need to. Okay. Now with Command S, you can save your work. That's huge. Make sure you're saving your work every 5 minutes because you don't want to lose all that. I think I'm going to do a little bit of the same thing here on the nose. Thick, thin, or thin, thick. There you go. Just gonna move that there. You know what? I don't like that. It was a little bit messy. Try this one. Just again, option. Move that one, stretch it out a little bit. Stretch it out. Go. Okay. Another thing we're going to do is go back to the, put this down to lock that layer we're just working on. I'm gonna rename that to face lines, that way it's more specific. Let's select that, and then with the eraser again, Shift E. We're going to cut into the design a little bit, like so here. And this is just going to give it an additional texture, an indicator that there's some shadows here. And do the same thing across over here. And adding a little curve to it. Not that one. Yeah, when you add these curves to things as opposed to just a straight line, especially on a face, it gives you more dimension. I'm just going to merge these two layers since they're all facial lines. Just gives it a nice texture. And you usually want to do the cutting into the lines where you would find some highlight. For example, in here. Forehead a little bit. Oh, I don't like that last one. There you go. Maybe just a little bit here on the cheek on this side. Just a little bit, maybe one right there. There you go. Gives it a nice dimension. Okay, we're gonna lock that layer, make another layer. And what I'm gonna do here is just to find a little bit more of, in this case, the hair. Make this line a little thicker. There you go. That way when you zoom out, you can see a little bit more of a contrast between the face and the hair. And we're gonna do that all around, including a little bit of the eyebrow here on the bottom. I think it would be a little darker. Same thing with this hair. Following the outline, just separates the face from the hair. Do the same thing with the facial hair. Yeah, I don't like it. It lacked a little curve there. There you go. There you go. Same thing on this side. There you go. Okay. I'm happy with that. I'm going to start another layer, and in here we're really going to go into the hair. Make this brush much smaller and really go into some nice details in here. Inside of the hair with a thinner brush. Oh. You guys can let me know if you think this video is a little too long. It's just hard kind of teaching a whole logo illustration in 5 minutes. I really wanted to break down everything I'm doing in one process. See, adding those little lines on the hair just gives it a little bit more dimension. I'm going to do the same thing with the facial hair. Just to give it a little bit more layer. Oh, I don't like the way that curved. And again, you can do this with the mouse, but you would just need a little bit more patience. But if that's all you have, then work with that. Once you get the basics of what you're doing, you can upgrade. Really want to emphasize the tools don't make the artist. Well, artist makes the artist. If you're dedicated and you love what you're doing, I mean, you can draw with anything that's available to you. And that's really been my mindset all my life, even before I could afford any tools. I would draw with whatever was available at the time. All I had was crayons or a 5-cent pencil. That's what I would use. If you wait long to get the best tools, you're going to be waiting a long time sometimes. And just, again, follow the curve of the hair. Really being patient with the sign and having fun with it. If you're doing this right, this would be pretty relaxing. If you're trying to rush this just to finish a project, then you're not only not going to have any fun, you're probably not going to want to do this again, and you're going to rob yourself of a good time. Just being patient with every hair. Every single little line. Every line matters here. Make sure you curve it. Don't do just a straight line. Add a little dimension to it, a little bit of life to the curve. Oh. Let's go. We're almost done. Following the shape of the hair there. Also, make sure you use a different thickness for the outline here and the lines inside of the hair. Again, it'll give it more dimension if you do that. If you zoom out, you can see how interesting it's starting to look. And this is over here technically here, so we're just going to do a little curve in there. Same thing with here. As you can see, we're going to have to go back to our oval to really clean up the edges on this design. And this is spot over here. There you go. Now we're going to try something I've never tried with hair before in this style, which is to maybe try out, see what it would look like to do the little lines here where I went ahead and erased. If it gives a little bit of dimension. Shift E. Let's see what that looks like. Oh. What I'm gonna do is, here's a little trick when you want to experiment with your design. Select your layer, you hold Option, and you move it up, and it makes a copy of it. Then you can lock that original layer. And you can just go ahead and try different things with this layer. That way, if it doesn't work, you can just go back to your original layer. And we're just gonna erase into this a little bit. Just curving into it. Sometimes you have to go all the way to see if something's gonna work or not. Before making a decision on it. And we're focusing on this side of the face because all the highlights would be on this side. I think it looks interesting enough to leave it, see what happens. Now this area was supposed to be some sort of facial hair, so we're gonna have to go ahead and fix that. Gonna make another layer. There you go. Okay, we're going to close the sun here, and we're going to unlock all these layers with the purpose of cutting out, like before, the outline, the border. Getting rid of these mistakes, making sure you select your oval, your shape, and the parts you want to cut out. And depending on your computer, this might take a second. And again, it's Shift M and then holding Option. You just drag around your shape, and it's going to delete anything outside of that oval. And just going all around, even the little pieces. And just being patient with it. I think that's most of it. Oh, I missed a little spot up here. Okay. I think we're good there. I think we can go right ahead and finish this emblem, and we could always spend more time with this design. Okay, with this oval, holding Shift to keep the proportions of the dimension of the object. You can drag like that. I'm gonna put this a little closer. Always center this with align objects under align. Again, you can find that most likely in the window option over here. Select that oval, and on the stroke, make it a little bit thicker. There you go. And then holding Option, make another oval, center that. And this is going to be basically our border. And between this and this, we're going to add our text. And you just make it big enough for whatever text you're adding to it. Okay. On this part, I'm going to show you how to add text to a path. First of all, when you do that, it erases the shape that you're drawing the text on. So we're going to make another copy of this. Go over here to Type tool with the letter T. Go to Type on Path tool. Select the shape. And just hit backspace to erase that. And we're naming this Odin Slotsmith. Again, this video is just for, this illustration is just to show you guys. I'll do some basics here. We're going to center this and align center. I'm going to move this whole thing. Excuse me. And as you can see here, it's not perfectly centered, and that's because of these little things down here. Holding Command, make sure that they're at the center of this little line here. It'll automatically center that. Now, if you want all your text capitalized and you didn't do that ahead of time, you can highlight that and go to all caps right here. I'm going to use my favorite typeface font, Jim High Top, and I'm going to make this font a little bit bigger. And then with this option here, you can move that either in or out. This is set the baseline shift. You want to be technical. And again, make this a little bit bigger, a little bit more spacing. And we're going to move this to our text folder. That way, to keep things in order. We're going to go ahead and lock the illustration. And we're going to change the color of the text by selecting it and picking that predetermined color. Now here we're going to add text at the bottom. Actually, before we do that, the T, with option in the letter A, we're adding that little dot there, just to make it a little bit more interesting. And then holding option, and then holding shift, go to the corner of this, we spin it, and we go to type on path options, flip it. You can preview it right here. It'll switch the font or the text. We go to character, and we just move our font this way. We can make that a little bit smaller with the letter T. Go ahead and highlight all of that, and we're just gonna put a description on this mock-up: locksmith and key cutting service. There you go. And we're gonna make that a little bit smaller. Center that a little bit more. There you go. And that should cover this specific illustration, something simple. Let me know what you guys think of this. Let me know if the video was a little too long. And give me some suggestions for another logo tutorial for my next video, and just leave that in the comment section. I'll pick something. I'll pick one of your guys' suggestions, make that up. And thank you guys for watching. Have a good one.